Hey, boys and girls, it's Nancy A. Shenker, also known as the Geezerproofer, at least until October 9th, when I'm going to be unveiling a very cool new brand, but still with amazing guests like the one we have today. So let me preface this, as I do with all of my episodes, and define what a geezer is. A geezer is somebody of any age who is just stuck. They do what they do. They find comfort in routine and they get stuck. They don't mix it up. And you could be a geezer at 20, you could be a geezer at 90, and there's nothing necessarily bad about being a geezer, but the opposite of being a geezer is a beezer, somebody who explores, who is curious, is capable of something we're actually going to talk about today, which is spontaneity. That the ideal solution is a combination, at least in my mind, is a combination of planning and free-form living. I'm just coming off what I declared my hot woman summer, which was very much a combination of random trips and meetings and gatherings and things that I had planned for, like my work and seeing my kids and my grandkids. So without further ado, my guest today is somebody who I met about 7 years ago when I was moving from Minnesota to Arizona. I had lived in Minneapolis for about a year, and I had worked with professional organizers when I moved from the suburbs to my tiny apartment in New York, when I moved from New York to Minnesota. So I knew the value of working with somebody who could help you get your shit together and get more accomplished in less time. So she actually helped me as I packed and prepped for my move to Arizona. And she's very involved in an organization called NAPO, which is the National Association of Professional Organizers. So today you're going to hear from Aimee Olson. Hey, Aimee, it's great to see you again.
Hi, Nancy. It's great to see you.
And so Aimee and I follow each other on social media. And this year, Aimee was at the Minnesota State Fair every day. For how many days was it, Aimee? 9, 10?
12.
12. Oh
12
my
days.
goodness. Navigating what is probably the largest state fair in the United States. The Arizona State Fair starts up on August 20th. And for those of you who've never been to a state fair, it's something you have to do at least once in your life. And unfortunately, I missed the Minnesota State Fair, but someday I will go there. So welcome, Aimee. Why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about what it is that you do now, because you've kind of moved beyond just professional organizing to something larger and more strategic.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I started my company, Life Done Simply, in 2016. And at the time, I was coming off of a very intentional downsize myself. I was changing careers. I knew that I wanted something different for my life. And so as I was going through my own belongings, I realized, oh, I want to help other people do this as well. There's a need. But my life continued to evolve. And in 2018, my partner and I decided to move into an RV full time and travel the country while we worked and went hiking and just enjoyed life. And so through that process, I realized that I wanted to help people more about thinking about their stuff and less in their stuff, and really giving them the tools to make those intentional decisions themselves. And not only with the stuff, but the mental, the emotional stuff as well around time and their productivity, and what I like to consider productivity, right? This false sense of getting a lot of stuff done in life, but then waking up and realizing, oh, I didn't get the right stuff done. So I now do a lot of coaching around time management, productivity, and organizing and decluttering. And I do that from my 180 square foot RV.
Love that. Love that. You're actually my second guest who lives out of an RV, and you're my second guest who specializes in organizing. So I think it's really important. And especially, you started your business pre-pandemic, but the pandemic did change everything in terms of giving people more flexibility as far as where they want to live, where they want to work, and what's really important to them. And it's not necessarily stuff, it is experiences. And the only way you could free up time for experiences and joy is to get rid of some of the stuff that you do out of a sense of obligation or compulsion or habit. And habits, as you and I both know, are really hard to break.
It is. And I found that during that time, a lot of people were excited for what I was doing, but it always came with a follow-up of, I could never do what you're doing. And my response was always, good. You shouldn't do what I'm doing, right? A lot of my business and a lot of my coaching revolves around helping my clients figure out what their vision is, what their values are, and then making decisions based on that, not what the status quo is, not what their neighbor's doing, their mother-in-law, their brother, right? Really finding what gives you energy, what fuels you. Because yeah, going to the state fair for 12 days and 130 plus hours is not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay, right?
So let's jump into that because that
Yeah.
is fascinating to me. So, what is it that compels you to go to the state fair? Is it the food? Is it the activities? Is it the people?
It's deeply sentimental for me. So my birthday always falls over the state fair. So when I was a little girl growing up in Minnesota, we always went to the fair. And that grew as the years were going on. When I was smaller, I'd go with my mom and my grandparents, and each one of them had different things that really interested them, right? So my trips to the fair each day were different. When I became an adult, I I just continued on that tradition. And our fair is a 322-acre campus. It is the largest state fair in the country. It has the highest attendance. It has the most going on. And so there is something new that you can experience every single day you're there. And so that growth of my love of the fair really was fueled by just what the fair has to offer. Every day you can go and experience something new that you weren't even planning on.
And thanks to the miracles of digital media, I was going to the state fair along with you. Every day I would check, not in a creepy way, Aimee, but I would check out your Facebook profile to say, what's Aimee eating today? Because I'm eating clean right now. So I was having this vicarious state fair experience with you. I mean, I tend to like big places with a lot of variety. I'm a trade show fanatic. I loved Mall of America. I went to University of Michigan. So I am not scared. I went to Disney World with my older daughter and her family. So I'm not scared of big, complex places, but it is really important that you have kind of a navigation plan or you work with a planner. We were just talking about Disney planners. I worked with a great one who really made our visit so much easier, and we were able to see everything we wanted to see in a relatively short period of time with time left over at the end to be spontaneous. So what was the best food that you ate at the Minnesota State Fair? And you could list up to 3. I don't want you to
Yeah.
pin you down.
Yeah. Well, Pronto Pups are always my favorite. And for anyone outside of the region who doesn't know what that is, it's similar to a corn dog, but the batter is different. It's more of a pancake batter. Pronto Pups to me are superior. So I'm team Pronto Pup to a corn dog. So that's always my number one. Um, the state fair always has about 30 new food offerings each year. And actually, that's become a lot of the fun around it is you have the different food vendors who come up with something new and exciting. And this year, another Midwest favorite was the deep fried ranch. And it was supposed to be kind of a gimmick, but it ended up being a huge hit. So
As
the
in
deep fried
ranch
ranch,
dressing?
as in ranch dressing. And so what they did is they took cream cheese, they made a ranch cream cheese, so it had some body, and then they hand breaded that on site and then served it with a hot honey drizzle. Absolutely phenomenal. They took something that's very Midwestern, very basic, and they kind of elevated it a little bit, and it was a huge hit.
I love that. I mean, if
Yeah.
it always amazes me too that people who are aficionados of state fairs or the women who appear on cooking shows, they're not 300 or 400 pounds. So I think they either have really good metabolism or they like ration themselves as they pregame for the fair. Yeah, I think I came back from the walking at Disney sort of counterbalanced the eating at Disney.
Yeah.
And What about other kinds of attractions at the state fair? What else is there?
So I love the idea that it is the Great Minnesota Get Together. So that is the term that we give our state fair. And you have youth and you have adults that come from all over the state and they submit. They submit their farm animals for judging. They do crafts, they do baking, they do agriculture, they do floral designs. And what I love is, especially in this time in our life, there's just this general reminder and togetherness that comes there where we are very common. We have more in common than we don't, right? And so to come together and see people in their area of enthusiasm, right? If it's growing a giant pumpkin and hoping that they get the purple ribbon for the largest pumpkin, I love going to see all of that stuff. But my favorite event is one that only our fair has, which is the llama alpaca costume contest.
I saw that.
4-H'ers, yeah, 4-H'ers have a coordinating costume with their llama, and they march in a little bit of a parade before judges. And it is the most comical, entertaining thing that you'll ever see. It's so cute. And the kids are so creative with it as well. And to me, it's those quirky little things that you would never know to seek out that just kind of present themselves to you. So that's why I love our fair. There's a lot of the things that will grab your attention because there's the food and there's music but when you're going there and you're open to seeing something new, your socks will get blown off.
So I think the learning for our listeners and viewers that you could take out of that is have a plan, but be spontaneous. We were originally supposed to record this episode earlier, but you made a choice. And I respect that to say, you know what, this is my fair time. I'm not going on your podcast. And we were talking about that before the cameras and the sound were turned on, that it's all about making trade-offs and saying what's going to bring me the most joy, what's going to enrich my life the most, what's going to make me happy. So making those trade-offs, but having a plan, but also being really open and spontaneous if you see something that catches your fancy. And one of my mantras for the summer was you do you. So we were talking about the fact that van life may not be for everybody. I've been watching, I confess, 90 Day Fiancé the other way. And there's a couple, and one of the partners in the couple wants to live the van life, but her girlfriend suffers from anxiety and is having real difficulty with the ambiguity and the last minute course correction. And it's a formula for disaster. And they apparently, who knows if it's a publicity stunt or not, but they didn't make it through the show because they just couldn't agree on the lifestyle. So how, not to get too personal, but how are things going with you and your partner living on the road?
Yeah. So I will say, so you said, kind of you do you. My mantra, especially around the fair and our RV lifestyle, is be unapologetic. So when I started to make some of these alternative decisions with my life, a lot of people just didn't quite understand, right? There's a lot of that fear and, ooh, I don't think I could do that. And I would let that affect me a little bit. But I learned over the years that it is so authentically me and it brings me so much joy that I don't need to explain that to anyone. It doesn't need to be their thing. And so I'll just touch base on the fair real quick. My significant other has learned to love the fair, but he didn't go until we met 13 years ago. However, he doesn't go every day. He doesn't have to be there with me the whole time. He wouldn't want to, and I wouldn't want him to, right? Because I couldn't enjoy it. Now, go to our RV lifestyle. We are about to celebrate 6 years on the road in just a couple of weeks. And we do not see an end in sight. It has really given us a life that we could have never imagined. And it came from kind of just this crazy idea of what if. And we went into it with the idea of we'll give it 1 year, right? We'll give ourselves a boundary and say it's okay. We can eject if it's not right for us. But we've learned so much about ourselves in that. And yes, there are struggles. I always tell people that that tight space, that means everything comes to the top, right? You can't go to the other room and avoid that person. You can't, you're really close together. So I think it makes our relationship a little bit more honest in ways that if we lived traditional sticks and bricks, it wouldn't. But when people say, "Oh, I could never do what you do," I always say, "That's fine, but find your own adventure." Right? It doesn't have to be moving into a van or an RV, but what's your dream?
Right. And to try things on
Because
for size. As I said,
yes,
if you told me 15 years ago that I was going to be booking a one-way ticket and not having hotel reservations, that would give me agita. And now I am the polar opposite, where I've lived a life that was so planned and so structured. And I've had my own business now for 21 years. And I actually feel a little bit sorry for people who say, "Oh, I would love to go with you, but my boss called a meeting for 3 o'clock," because I've been my own boss for so long that the only pressure that I put on, the only pressure that exists for timing and responsibility is pressure that I put on myself, or financial pressure, which is, but I found something that I love to do. So it never feels like work. So for those people who are listening or watching, I think the first step before you make any rash decisions is just to, as I often call it, just teleport yourself into a life that you're not currently living and really dissect. I mean, this is what you do for a living, but dissect what it is. If you are having that anxiety or that agita, sort of get to the roots of what is it that's giving me the discomfort? What would happen if I threw away that chair that has been in my living room for the last 20 years? Or instead of going to the gym at 8 o'clock in the morning, which, I sometimes do, sometimes don't do because client stuff comes up. If I just go to sleep earlier and wake up at 5 and go to the gym then, it's really like trying it on for size and saying, do I like this? Do I not like this? Much the same way. I mean, I have 3 grandkids now. I think I had none when you and I first
yeah,
met,
wow.
but just even watching how my daughter gets them to try new foods or new experiences, or my younger daughter is teaching my 10-month-old granddaughter to eat new foods, and watching that process, saying, well, the funniest was the video when she was like spitting out her mango, but like she's going to try it again and see if she likes it better the second time. So,
Yeah.
again, I think our philosophies are very much in tune. Like, look at the obstacles that are getting in the way of your trying new things. And if you
Mhm.
fundamentally don't like those new things, and if you're a nester, and if you want to stay put and you want to live in Minnesota, go to your cabin in the summer, hang out with your group of friends, if it's not hurting anybody, then just you be you and you do you.
Yeah. The one thing I always tell my clients is don't live in the hypothetical future, though. Create a future and live in the now. But too often I'll see people hanging on to ideas or expectations or physical stuff because life was supposed to be a certain way. And
Can you say that
once you,
again? Because I'm going to make
yeah,
that a meme and use that when
yeah,
I advertise this episode. So, what was it?
yeah. Don't live in the hypothetical future.
Love that.
Create a future and live in the now, because too often I see people hanging on to ideas, expectations, physical stuff, thinking that that idea or that plan that they had 20 years ago, just it never quite worked out, but maybe still. Clear the clutter and make room for your dream. And, I see it too often. I see it with people when they manage their time, when they manage their homes. And I think that's really at the root of that phrase, I could never do what you do. I think it has less to do with what I'm doing and more about that block they have about their whatever their dream is.
Yeah, I
So
just
yeah,
had a
you do
guest
you.
on who produced her first movie at the age of 64 after having worked in a really boring corporate industry for a long time. And she is now on the film festival circuit, having just released her second film, which is amazing, which is called Climbing into Life, about a woman who scaled El Capitan, the oldest woman ever to scale El Capitan, which I would never want to do, but I learned a lot just watching this film, because El Capitan is like a vertical mountain. It's pretty scary, and I don't love heights, but I appreciate the movie, and I really applaud the fact that she did something so bold. So that's what I took away from that.
Yeah.
So if people want to engage you to help them either navigate a state fair, or if they're going to Minnesota and they need tips, or more importantly, if they just want to get better control over their life and their time, how do they reach you?
Absolutely. You can find me at lifedonesimply.com. I have a signature coaching program called Simply Aligned, and it's where we use your vision, your values to clear the mental, emotional, and physical clutter from your life. But I also do lots of ad hoc coaching, speaking engagements. If you have, a group that you think could be inspired and motivated by this story, I'd love to speak to their group as well. And I'm also on Facebook, Life Done Simply.
Excellent, excellent. And, we talk a lot on this show about aging. And although life expectancy is climbing, the average life expectancy for men is 84, and for women, it's 87. And something I've become really conscious of as I've gotten older is that I have limited time. And for the first time in my life, I have unlimited freedom within reason. I mean, I can't blow through my daughter's entire inheritance. But it is important when, as you age, if you don't have things that are tying you down to a particular place or a particular job, it's actually the best. This has been the best time in my life for reinvention and exploration. So getting over your fears and saying, you know what, I'm just going to try this on for size. And if I don't like it, I don't have to do it again. I think is just a great way to live. And coming full circle, that is the difference between a geezer and a beezer. So thank you, Aimee. This has been terrific. And who knows, maybe next year I will even see you at the Minnesota State Fair eating that, what was the breaded hot dog?
Pronto Pup.
Pronto Pup. Yes, I'll have to finish up my weightlifting and clean eating journey before I can visit. But I have almost a full year, which is great. And thank you so much for being a guest. So you can listen to this episode. Well, obviously you're listening if you're hearing this, but past episodes can be found on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you happen to get your podcasts. And if you'd like to see our lovely faces, we have a YouTube channel. So you can watch and listen there. If you would like to be a guest, just email me at thegeezerproofer@gmail.com. If you're listening after October 9th, you've already found out what the big surprise is. But if not, there is something cool coming next month. So thank you again, Aimee. And remember to be a beezer and not a geezer. Peace out.